Greetings, I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of courage. I know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here sharing your greatest gifts, your time and your energy means the world to me. I hope you know that in this very moment, in this space, you are loved and appreciated just as you are. I am so grateful for this last chance we get to connect in 2018. Normally, there's 4 episodes a month, 4 Mondays. Every one of my episodes comes out on a Monday. Usually there's 4 Mondays, but every once in a while we get 5 Mondays. We get a bonus episode, and I'm feeling really grateful that this bonus episode is coming out on December 31st, New Year's Eve, literally the last chance we get to connect in this year of courage in 2018. And so whether you're listening to this right when it came out on December 31st, or you're tuning in the new year, I hope I'm one of the first people to welcome you to one of the most exciting, the most fulfilling, the most empowering year of your life, 2019. I invite you to begin reflecting upon what is this going to be your year of. You already know I'm going to have tons of workshops and episodes and everything to cultivate that mindset for you. But let us go ahead and end this year in an intentional way. And if it's already the new year, let us go ahead and just add a little bit more time to that intentional reflection. And so what I want to share with you in this episode is I have been reflecting all year upon, as I always do, what creates a meaningful life? What creates a life where you're able to set a series of goals and accomplish them? Experience both success and at the same time fulfillment, all while reflecting upon what does courage mean. And I've come to a conclusion, and that one conclusion is that all of us have within us these extremes. And the secret to life is finding a way to create a bridge that connects these extremes. And that courage is walking that bridge between what is usually our default and what we need to lean into a little bit more to experience growth. You can call this a spectrum. I like to think of it as a bridge. And so what I want to share with you is 5 bridges that I have found so much empowerment in walking this year in 2018. And so let's just jump right in. This is going to be a quick episode because it is a bonus episode. The first bridge is this right here. Inflow and discipline. If you're listening to the podcast, you don't know that I got this fancy whiteboard that I got some stuff written on. Inflow and discipline. I see this as the first bridge. So if on one side you have going with the flow, improv, doing whatever comes up, listening to your intuition and just going for it. And then on the other hand, you have discipline. Now, arguably on all of these bridges I'm going to give you, it could be that, Tom, these really aren't extremes. I disagree with your premise. That's totally cool. If we were to work it out, I would probably agree with that as well. But for the sake of this episode, hear what I'm saying behind what I'm saying, if you get what I mean. So if you're like, Tom, those aren't extremes, that's fine. Just hear the message that I am trying to give behind it and take a little nugget from that. Back to what we were talking about. On this one side, you have this going with the flow. On the other side, you have discipline. Now, I want you to reflect upon what is your default. Now, maybe you're not on one end or the other, but let's say you're not dead of center. Which side do you lean more towards? Chances are it's going to depend on what area of your life. But if you were to add up all of those areas of your life, which one are you more defaulting towards? Now, at the beginning of the year, 2018, I realized that my default is discipline. I am sometimes disciplined to a fault. Once I make a decision, I can be so disciplined in executing that decision that if it's a bad decision, I don't allow myself an opportunity to get into flow, to get into improv, where I can start to find a solution. And so this year, I really tried to go for most of this year on the other end of the spectrum, where I spent a lot of intentional time in flow, waking up and seeing what is the day calling me towards, really listening to what my body was asking for, what my spirit. And if I had a disciplined set of how the day was supposed to go, or set of goals, or a schedule, or a routine, I really tried experimenting with, well, let's say my body or my spirit or my mind is saying do something different. I really experimented this year with overriding my discipline. And I really found this joy in doing that. I found new activities and passions and interests that I didn't know was there before. For instance, one is that I have discovered that I want to learn Chinese or Mandarin. And so that was not something that was one of my goals this year. But I started to every morning while going on my walk, listening to a Mandarin podcast, and I would say the words out loud. And one thing that I found is, especially when I was learning Igbo, which is where Adora's from, she's Nigerian, but she's Igbo. And so when I was learning Igbo words for our traditional wedding, I really found that learning new languages takes me out of my comfort zone for a couple reasons. One thing that we process with Adora is that memorization of things such as poems, speeches, ideas, stuff like that, you can give it to me 1 or 2 times and I can have it memorized and able to teach it, able to regurgitate it, able to speak it. I can memorize my poems pretty quickly. However, languages, for some reason or another, they don't come quickly to me. And Adora was saying, you're not slow at languages. You're not bad at learning languages. You're learning at the same speed that most of us take to learn speeches, to learn poems. And so really, you're just leaning into what we all have to go through. And so I've learned that I like that it's a learning experience that's challenging to me. The other thing is, like maybe a lot of us, I feel self-conscious when I start to practice a new language, especially if I'm around somebody I think speaks that language. Get really self-conscious. I want to do it in private. And that's really that perfectionism thing, that not wanting to make mistakes, not wanting to be vulnerable. And so as I started to practice Igbo or Mandarin around people who speak that language, for the most part, people get really excited and appreciative. And so this is just one example of finding an inflow idea that came up into my mind, and I've discovered so many wonderful things about it. I even started listening to Chinese or Mandarin music so I can get the melody or I can get the syntax in my mind, and it's even influenced the way I write my music. Now, on the other end, if I was not disciplined about learning this new idea I got by being in flow, I would never learn it. So unless I said every morning when I go for my walk for 15 minutes, I'm going to practice. Unless I implemented this discipline, it would never graduate from this great idea I discovered while being in flow to being something that is actually a tangible skill like a language that I have. And so, my friends, if you're on this end of the spectrum where you're always disciplined, here's what I'd like to invite you to do is use your discipline as a strength. And discipline by picking one day of the week where you normally don't have to work. For most of us, that's Sunday. And say, every Sunday for 3 hours, I am going to be in flow. What that means is for those 3 hours, I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to listen to my intuition, my gut feeling. I'm going to scratch any curiosity itch that comes up, and I'm just going to go with it. That means if your body says, I need a nap, you take a nap. If it says, Google this word or go on a YouTube rabbit hole, you do that. If it means, I've always wanted to paint, that you buy the painting supplies, and for those 3 hours, you paint. So use your discipline to, for a set period of time each week, just allow yourself to explore. Now, if you're on the other end of the spectrum, this is oftentimes where artists or creatives fall. We're like, I only want to do when I'm inspired or it feels authentic or I'm feeling, like my intuition is telling me to do it. You're never going to be able to turn those great ideas into tangible things you can share and make an impact with the world until you implement a disciplined schedule. And so the way to do that is to start to come up with routines and rituals that you follow. A great one is deciding what time are you going to go to bed and what time are you going to get up. And scheduling time blocks where no matter what, even if, let's say you have a book to write and your intuition is telling you, I don't feel like writing this book. Surprise, most people don't feel like doing that kind of stuff. You say to yourself, you look ahead in the week and you say Monday from noon until 4, Tuesday from 9 until 3, whatever. You schedule those time blocks. And you become so rigid in your discipline that even if you don't want to, you sit down and you just type, even if you feel like, Tom, I am putting word vomit onto the page. This is terrible. I hate you. Why are you making me do this? That you literally stand over your own shoulder and say, you will not get up during this time that I scheduled. And you know what you're going to find? That maybe the first 10 minutes are pure torture and your quote unquote intuition is telling you to get up. Maybe even the first 30 minutes, maybe even the first hour, but you will find that eventually you stop fighting yourself. And now that you've scheduled the time and given yourself a place to outflow, to output all that's inside of you, that you're going to find that you have allowed your discipline to put you into a place of flow, and you're going to start to get those gems onto a page. And maybe even in a 3-hour time block, all you got was one sentence that is a masterpiece. But when you give yourself the discipline of stacking those times, you're going to go from one sentence to one paragraph. Next thing you know, your book was written because you found that bridge to connect your inflow mind and your discipline. Let's jump to the next one. I don't know why I did that, but we're going to go with it. Long game and short game. People on the podcast, you can't see, but I have long game and short game written really cool. These are two extremes that are very obvious. On one hand, you have this long game vision. On the other hand, you have this short game vision. Now, when you're moving through life, you have to find the extreme, the bridge that connects these extremes. I kept telling myself this morning, because what happens is I go to my spin class and I'm spinning and my all my thoughts, all my stress goes away. And that's when I get a lot of my best ideas. So usually once I get off my spin bike, I write down all my ideas. And I kept telling myself, Tom, just because you're working out doesn't mean everybody else is. And so don't go writing down all of these workout examples. But I'm going to give one to you anyway. So if we talk about working out, when you work out, it's good to have the mindset that I'm not really going to see results for probably 1 to 3 years. Like if you're just starting out and you want to be Michael B. Jordan strong, Michael B. Jordan in Black Panther strong, Michael B. Jordan in Creed 2 strong, and you're just starting out and you work, so working out's not going to be your job. Maybe you're going to work out 3 to 5 times a week after work. To get to that kind of strength, you're really looking at about a 3 to 4 year timeline. Now, to get there though, you have to have the short-term goals of what I just said, 3 to 5 times a week. I will work out fiercely and I will stick to it, and I will not get lost in the every week I'm going to weigh myself and check my body fat percentage, because if you do that, you are going to lose your motivation. You're going to lose your grit. You're going to lose hope, because you're not going to look like Michael B. Jordan in Creed 2 / Black Panther in a couple weeks, only working out 1 to 2 hours a day, 3 to 5 times a week. If you really think about someone like Michael B. Jordan, okay, look, I just saw Creed 2. He looks great. I'm going to stick with this analogy. Like, that was his job to end up looking like that. But it's not necessarily your job to look like that. So you got to have that long-term vision. The other one could be right here, this podcast that I'm doing. Putting out a podcast every single week for me is a short-term goal that I get a little bit of a high from. And I get a little bit of a high from it is because I love when I say I'm going to do something and I do it. I love doing that. I love knowing that when I woke up that morning or I woke up that year, I said, I'm going to put out an episode every week no matter what. I love the high of following through on my word. I love it so much. That is one of my favorite parts of putting out a podcast. And so that's why, since what year was that? 2015, I have put out a video, which eventually a video became a podcast / video. Put out an episode every single week without fail. So that means in a month, January 2019, I will put out an episode every week for 4 years, right? Is that the correct math? That is the correct math. Now, that is my short-term goal. My long game vision is that it might take me 10 years before anybody watches any of these. Now, I'm thankful to the people who text me, or send me a direct message on Instagram that let me know that it didn't take me 10 years for people to start listening to my podcast. But I have the long game vision that people might not stop listening for another 10 years. I'm going to put out episode after episode, and one person might listen. And I am so hyped that one person listened. I'm so excited. I am so grateful. But of course, I want to be able to impact as many people as I can, because I believe that the guests I interview really can make an impact. And I want to be able to provide a platform for the wonderful work they are doing. But I have the long game patience to know that it might take that long. So I don't get discouraged if I look at my stats and it says one person listened this week. It never says that. But let's say it says one person listened this week. I don't say, she's not worth it. Because ultimately, my short-term goal is not to have 1 million people listen. My short-term 1 week goal is to just put an episode out while having the long-term patience that in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now, I will have that platform where maybe 1 million people listen to every episode. And I can bring somebody on my episode that nobody's ever heard of, but I know is doing awesome work in their community. And so many people can learn about what they're doing, while at the same time I can help give them a huge boost to what they're doing. That's my long-term vision. So think about in your life, your short-term goals, your long-term vision, whether it's your career, your relationships, your body, your passion, your work. Have this long game vision where you have the patience that it could take you years and years and years and years, but you don't care because you have short-term goals that give you that high. Short-term discipline, short-term going all in, while at the same time having the long game vision and the patience to see it through. Let's move to the third one. Yeah. Third one is the 2 bridges of reflection and decision. What? Reflection and decision. I really feel like on this episode, podcast people, I'm leaving you hanging because I'm doing some pretty fun things here in the video. You know, I am super passionate about people going to personal development things. It's why I started the Celebration Academy, because I would talk to my friends and they'd never been to any personal development, professional development stuff ever. A lot of it was because of access. Because for most people, unless your job is going to provide it or pay for it, that the price barrier can be a barrier, to be redundant. And so that's why I wanted the Celebration Academy to only be $10 a month, or to not just plug myself, Brian Johnson's Philosopher's Note, $10 a month. Now, at the same time, I've seen people spend $60,000, $100,000, $150,000 in 1 year on personal development training. And I think, oh my gosh, they must be the most transformed person. Their business must be making millions of dollars a year to invest that much time and money in personal professional development. And I'll talk to them and find that it doesn't seem like they've done any personal or professional development. That there's people I know who have done zero personal or professional development that are way more transformed, have way more self-accountability and ownership and conflict mediation skills than this person has after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on these courses and going to the seminars and doing these kind of things. And so we're talking about this bridge of reflection and decision. It's because oftentimes, if you just spend time in this reflective state where you go to one of these trainings or you listen to a podcast, and as you're reflecting, you're like, that's a really good point. Like, I like that. Like, yeah, that's really nice. Oh, I do realize I do that. Like, oh, I do want to do this. And you're in this reflective state, but you never come over to the side of the bridge of actually making a decision. That it only stays as this aha moment you once experienced. The high, the adrenaline, the rush of an aha moment only stays that until you make a decision. The word decision actually means to cut off. The word scission is indecision, so it makes sense to cut off. And so until you do that, you make that scission where I used to do this, but now I will no longer, under any circumstance, do it again. Or I have this aha moment that this is what I need to do with my business, or this is what I need to do with my life, or with my body, or with my world, or my relationships, or my communication. Until you make that decision that you will implement it, come hell or high water, until that decision happens, it just stays in this reflective place. Now, at the same time, I've seen people, and I've seen myself, that have made a decision and they just keep going with it and going with it. And it doesn't work and it doesn't work. And they just think, I'm just going to keep pushing through this grit because I made this decision, and banging their head against the wall and banging their head against the wall because they never pause to self-reflect and think, what's been working? What hasn't been working? What can I do better? And listening to what people have to say, getting feedback, and using that to inform the decisions they're making. Think about where in your life, where are you spending a lot of time in this reflective, intuitive, personal development space where at the same time, it doesn't translate to actually making decisions? Or maybe do you spend a lot of your time where you've made decisions that you are now seeing through? And you feel like because you made that decision, you made that commitment that you have to keep going the course. You have to keep going the course. And you don't reflect. Maybe because of out of fear that what if I reflect and find I've made the wrong decision? What should I do? So find yourself on the spectrum. Where do you need to spend a little more time in 2019 to connect these extremes? Okay, my friends, we got time for one more. This is the last bridge I want to talk about is reps and rest. Reps and rest. Clearly, like I said, I did my spin class, so a little bit of a workout analogy in there. But reps meaning how many repetitions? How many times can you do things? How many at-bats? How many chances can you have to do this thing? To work, to run, to create, to make another phone call, whatever you want to think of reps as. That's one side of the bridge. The other side is rest, taking pause, sleeping, nourishment, re-energizing. If you think of these as two opposite sides of the bridge, where are you defaulting a little more into? Because you need to have balance between these. Whether it's you're working out all the time, you know how muscles rebuild is when you push and run, you actually tear the muscle. You kind of micro injure it. And muscle doesn't build during that point. When the muscle builds is actually when you rest. And so if you were to only, let's say, bench press every day, bench press, every day, bench press, and then you were to never rest, your muscles would actually never grow. You just keep tearing them. At the same time, here's another analogy in my life, is that I went for, I would say the past 2, maybe 3 years, I never went more than 2 days, maybe 3 to push, without posting every day on social media, because consistency is queen. And sharing your voice, storytelling every single day, it's a huge part of business development. So I did that all the time. I decided when I was going to go to Nigeria for my wedding that I did not want to have my mind on my business. And so I scheduled all of my podcasts to be released in my YouTube and the celebration episodes. But I made the decision that the everyday stuff that I post that cannot be scheduled, like on Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, since I don't have a team doing those kind of things, it's me. I didn't want to have my head in, I need Wi-Fi so I can post this. I wanted to fully focus on my wedding and my time with Adora and meeting her family and getting to experience Nigeria. So I really went into the rest stage rather than the reps of every day having a chance to story tell, see how people react, connect with new people. When I got back from that rest and I stepped back into my role of getting reps at storytelling on social and connecting with people, I had this whole new perspective and this whole new way of communicating. And I found that in some instances, I was really pushing hard on some things that was giving me barely any results. It was creating tons of stress, but was barely connecting with people. And so from that rest, I had that clarity because I paused and stepped back to say, I'm going to create a new strategy that I've been implementing since December, and have found significant growth in a way that takes less effort and creates less stress. It's like a win-win. And I only found that because I found that my extreme that I was spending the most amount of time in was my at-bats, my reps. And so I needed to take a little more time in the rest stage. And from doing that, I was able to find that balance that created such results. And so for you, like all of these, where do you find yourself on that spectrum of rest and reps? Where do you want to lean a little more into to experience growth in 2019? My friends, I could go on for forever. I had about 10 of these written down on my notebook, but I only have 4 whiteboards, and so 4 is what I decided to do. Here's the thing I want to say to wrap up my year of courage. The question I kept asking that people really try to reflect upon, and I don't know quite if I got the answer I was looking for, and so I want to leave it to you to think about. I'll share with you my thoughts, is why does courage get its own word? A lot of times I'd ask people, what is courage? And they'd say it's being your authentic self, or having being brave, or, speaking your truth, or not caring about the criticism and doing what you need to do. And I'd say, why does courage actually need its own word if courage is authenticity? Why does courage need its own word if courage is actually bravery? And it really caused a lot of my guests to reflect and to think about that one. And so I've been thinking about it all year. And for me, there's really not language that can adequately explain it. All I can say is courage is that little extra inner power fire that it takes to implement the authenticity. Courage is that extra decision you make to be brave. Courage is that decision you make when you know you're afraid to do this thing, but you decide to do it anyways. I believe that the fire you lean into within you, that power you lean into within you, that allows you to make that decision, I believe that is courage. And so I wish for you, I hope for you, that moving into 2019, you're able to take all of these courage conversations we've had, and you're able to use that inner power within you to more and more make that decision to move in the direction of your dreams, to let go of the fear or the limited thinking or any way or any possibility or anyone that has ever told you you're not good enough or you must prove yourself to be worthy. I hope you can use courage to make a decision to let go of the BS that person taught you, because you are worthy just as you are. You are here for a reason, and a reason that is unique just to you. And community is when we all activate that unique purpose we are here, and the wonderful gifts and experiences that only you have gone through and have. When you combine all of those things and you live, that is when you make the biggest impact, not only in your own life within yourself, but all around us. And so any way I can be a part of that journey in 2019, and any way I have served you and being a part of that in 2018, I am truly grateful for. My friends, this has been a wonderful year. I am wishing you the best. In 2019, I'm sending you all of my love. And as always, I'm wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.